with my background first, because some people may not know about me. My name is Candan Bölükbaş, and you don't have to waste your time to pronounce my name. You can call John. It's easy for me. And I am the CTO of NormShield Security. We provide cloud-based cybersecurity solution, detecting, analyzing, and prioritizing cyber threats and vulnerabilities, and simplifying this remediation process. I'm computer engineering, Bachelor of Science, and have more than 5 years network and security administration for a variety of companies and governmental organizations, and also more than 5 year penetration testing experience. I have a bunch of certificates, especially networking and security. And the good thing is, if you learn something from me about offensive security, or you learn hacking from me, I want to clarify something, that I am also computer hacking forensic investigator and also EC Council certified incident handler. So if you did something wrong, I'll probably catch you up, okay? So please stay away from unethical events, because your target probably hire me and I will find you, okay? So this is my Twitter address. I usually post the meetup and the videos and the whole cool stuff from my Twitter accounts. Our company Twitter account is NormShield. We also post some cool stuff over there. So we already covered the introduction to ethical hacking, and also the basic exploitation and scanning in the previous meetups. So I'll quickly go over that, and I would like to continue with the advanced exploitation. And we already use Bbox and Metasploitable and Kali Linux for our lab environment in order to exploit some vulnerabilities. Today we are going to use these boxes also, and we are going to use Windows. But if you have never used those, I strongly advise you to read the description in our meetup page. Actually, I think we already mentioned that. Let me click on advanced exploitation with Metasploit and Meterpreter. And yeah, it says that important, please make sure that you have a Kali Linux, Bbox, Metasploitable, and the Windows machine. Windows is going to be our victim. I like Windows to be a victim because it's useless unless you use it as a victim. So the Kali is going to be our attacker. These guys are going to be our victims. These two actually deliberately vulnerable machines. This one is by default vulnerable. So that's why we are using Windows and other two machines. So what we are going to do, we would like to start with Metasploit a little bit. And if you guys are not familiar with Metasploit, if you run your Kali Linux in a terminal, if you use MSF console, it's going to bring you the Metasploit framework console. This is the console that we are using most of the time as a penetration tester. And it is used for both auxiliary scanning, exploitation, and post-exploitation steps. It's not an next click item. It is console based, although there are some tools that you can use the GUI also. Let me find that quickly. Armitage, I don't know whether it is installed on my machine or not. Okay, I think it's default on Kali Linux. If you are having difficulty with Metasploit console, you can use the GUI interface, the Armitage. Armitage is a Java-based Metasploit framework parser, and it makes your life easier a little bit to some extent, of course. But in most cases, it's hard to use, because in most cases you will not have an ability to run an GUI interface application in let's say a cloud environment, in an embedded machines and all of them. So you have to use a console application eventually. So when you click on that, it's asking me to start the RPC server, and if you say yes, it's going to start the Metasploit remote procedure call. It's going to throw a few exceptions while starting, but it is usually starts without any other problems. Let's give this a couple of seconds. By the way, I want to explain the Metasploit. Metasploit is a container for an exploitations, auxiliary, post-exploitation, payloads, shellcodes, encoders, and no operations. and all of them are actually created and embedded into Metasploit framework. It is free, and if you would like to use it in professional area, and if you need an GUI or web-based Metasploit, you can use the Rapid7/Metasploit. You can download it and use it. But I rarely see some people that they are using the Metasploit GUI. I don't know whether you guys see anybody Metasploit GUI is using, but console is pretty much comfortable. So what it's providing is there are about 1,500 exploits available on Metasploit framework, which means you can exploit by using these exploits to a vulnerable service. Okay. This is and exploits and payloads are usually used together, because when you exploit something, it means that you're killing the driver, as I already mentioned in the previous meetups. Exploiting means killing a driver. When you kill a driver, you need to do something, right? Because there is no driver in that car anymore. So what you need to do is either you should put a driver or the car is going to crash to a wall. So that is the payload stands for. Okay, payload is used for as a driver. When you put your payload on an exploited service, it's going to respect your orders and it's going to listen what you are saying. Okay. Auxiliary is the helper modules. It's going to allow you to scan and find the vulnerabilities or brute forcing or something like that. It's not an actually exploitation, but it's an helping modules. Post means the post exploitation. When you get an exploit, you exploited it successfully, you have a shell or you have a kind of Meterpreter shell, you're going to use post modules, and I'm going to show that in a minute and in a couple of minutes later. Encoders is used for the escaping from the firewalls, because when you try to exploit a remote service, probably you are going to go through a firewall device, right? Because the firewall are aware of that the exploitation shellcode patterns, they're going to recognize that, hey, you are doing something illegal. I need to catch you, and they are going to drop your connection, and maybe they can protect the target. In order to escape that, we usually use encoders to encode our payloads. They are going to be, to some extent, invisible. If you would like to make it fully invisible, you have to use either encryption or custom payloads, okay? Because these payloads and encoders are pretty much known. No operations, it's no operations. It's doing nothing, but it's usually used for generating shellcodes. And if you generate shellcode, you need to put some no operations, because if you would like to kill a driver, you can't exactly know where it's going to kill, right? Maybe you shoot from a bridge, it's going to kill, you are going to kill the driver, but you cannot expect the exact time when the driver is going to kill, right? Because it may take some time to die, or it may die immediately, right? In this case, we are putting some no operation, means that during this time, do nothing, okay? Until the driver completely dies, and you get successful payload, I'm going to tell what you're going to do. But until that point, do nothing. This pattern is called as no operation, and it's usually used in a shellcode environment and exploit development. So this is what Metasploit is providing you, and the same, almost the same thing actually, is available in this platform. This is Armitage. When you run Armitage, it allows you to scan your environment and find some machines. It's a GUI, and you can click on something, and when you click on something, you can try to log in with a MySQL or VNC, because it detects the open ports, or even you can scan for the vulnerabilities and find some exploitations. Maybe you can change the Windows version or operating system version, or even sometimes I saw some people are doing that, clicking on that attack, find attack, or Hail Mary. This Hail Mary is actually the last thing you should do, because what it's doing, that it is trying to use every single exploit available in Metasploit framework until one of them is successfully worked. This is horrible, because if you use this many exploits to a target machine, probably you're gonna hurt the target, okay? Our primary focus is, since we are planning to be a penetration tester, we should not hurt the target, because it's not our enemy. It's our customer, right? At least I'm thinking like that. And if you are thinking that, hey, it's not my enemy, it's my old girlfriend or boyfriend, I'm going to exploit his machine, so it's my enemy. So please stay away that kind of stuff, and stay away from Hail Mary. It's doing everything it's possible. Okay, maybe you can find an exploit, but it's going to hurt. Okay. So where is our Metasploit? Yeah, I'm going to explain Armitage a little bit, but I usually, rarely or never use Metasploit Armitage. I usually use the framework. As you can see, it seems better. So let's start with targets, right? We already discovered our targets, right? Because B-Box and Metasploitable are two targets that we can use to exploit, and maybe I can quickly cover that points also. How can I detect the potential targets in our network environment? What we are doing that? NBT scan, right? NBT scan 172.62, what was that? 16.52 and 0 plus. This is my network range because I know my network is sitting on this IP range. And let me quickly show that. Fconfig, because I already covered this part, I quickly passed that points, but my IP address is 172.16.52.2.16. So the target machines, let's say I'm in a local environment and I'm connected to the same wireless network with you. If I would like to hack one of your computer, I'll probably scan this environment. If you are in a remote site and if you are trying to attack your customers, you have to use passive scanning. How can I detect the passive scanning? There are a lot of tools for doing that, but most powerful one is actually that we already use. For example, in this discovery, we are providing some kind of passive vulnerability scanning. In this discovery, we actually collected all the network ranges of an candidate organization. It's actually Netflix. And let me quickly show that. These are the domain names registered for that company, and let me show that. Okay, these are the IP ranges that belongs to Netflix. For example, this IP range, this IP range. You can scan for that, and also you can use the passive threat scanning. And this is how usually hackers identify their targets. When you collect these items, you need to identify which ports are available on that target site, right? And for this purpose, we usually use the CENSYS. Have you ever heard that? Let me quickly show that. Before touching the environment, maybe you should use this service. These are actually the service. Those are scanning the entire internet every week. So they are identifying the open ports on a target machine. For example, does anybody be candidate for their IP address? Anybody? Nobody, yeah? Let's use Netflix IP address, okay? So let's choose this IP address. Assume that we found Netflix IP ranges. And when I use these services, it can say that, hey, there is an 80 and 443 HTTPS and HTTP is available for this one. And Heartbleed is not available. And it is Apache Tomcat, this version, okay? So we actually identify the target and the port is available. But it doesn't mean that it is exploitable. There is a service running. It doesn't mean that it's exploitable. But this is how you can identify the remote targets. Of course, you can use Nmap to scan a target. But remember, if you use Nmap, you are using what? You are creating noise on firewall. So you're about to catch by the firewalls. Of course, I can do this way. For example, let's choose this IP address as a target, and I will use Nmap minus S synscan, and this IP and the port is going to be, let's say, top port 100. Okay. When I use this one, it's going to scan the top 100 ports of that IP address, so I can identify. But the difference is I touch this IP address, but touching provides you more results. As you can see, actually send CYS providing me 2 open ports, but actually I found one more, right? 21st is also open. Okay, so this is how you can identify, but since we are sitting in our local environment, I use NBT scan because in local environment, it's easier to identify with an NBT scan because it's using the proper packages to identify the NetBIOS protocols, probably you are going to get a better result. So I identify that there are some machines available, but I will start with this one first, Metasploitable, because this is the deliberately vulnerable service to be exploited. And I can use nmap to scan this item. Let's use nmap -a, means everything. And the target is 172, 16, 52, and 158. And the port is going to be, let's say, full port scanner. This is how you can scan with full port scan, and it's going to identify the open ports and services to me. So at this point, we are sending a lot of packages to our target, and it creates a lot of noise, and firewalls are going to catch you a lot of times. So the first thing you need is, if your IP address is blocked by a firewall, even if you find an exploit, you can't use it because firewall is blocking you. Even your legal traffic is also blocked. So what we need to do is, what we can do? How can I bypass the firewall and I need to scan that? What can I do? Spoofing IP address is the solution, but the problem with spoofing is when you spoof an IP address, especially in TCP protocol, your reply goes back to where? The spoof IP address. So spoof can be used to some extent when you use nmap. Let me show that. nmap -si. Have you ever heard this? Idle scan. This is actually idle scan. If you find a Windows machine on the internet, you can use it as a zombie. So let's say this one is my zombie 116 and 52.74 and 445. And I would like to scan on 72, 16, 52, 158. Okay. This command is going to use this IP address as zombie, and it's going to scan this target. So the best part is it's going to evade from firewalls, and you can use a full port scan with this command. The only thing that is required is this machine has to be Windows, okay? Because Linux has a random IP ID value, so you can't use a Linux machine for an zombie scan. But Windows are, as you already mentioned, that they are by default vulnerable and by default unsecure. So you can use Windows for these purposes also. The second thing is you can only use port scanning. You can't use a version scan. You can't use a vulnerability scan. This solves a little bit problem, but not all of our problems. We need also vulnerability scanning. So what you need is your best shot is find a service on the internet, either SOX proxy or virtual private service. You can use that as a port scanning, or you can reduce the nmap scanning speed. And actually it is -T1. So if you use this command, it is going to slow down nmap scanning to some extent, saying that, hey, send the packages slowly. And this is going to be pretty much undetectable on most firewalls, because this many packages are also sent by a legitimate IP addresses. Because think about that, an environment with 10,000 employees, they are sending a lot of packages to a target machine because they are on a single NAT platform, right? And they are IP addresses, single NAT platform. So this allows you to simulate the same behavior with a NAT environment. So it's going to be undetectable. This is how you can do. I assume that you did it because we are going to cover that later. But this is how we can scan. And if you would like to escape from the firewalls, you can use either zombie scan or what was that? Slow down the scanning, and also you can use the SOX proxy. Which SOX proxy can I use? Tell me a SOX proxy that is free, available, everybody can use it, and it's easy to use. Which one? Come on, guys. Which pro? Who? Yes, exactly. Tor. Tor is actually free SOX proxy. You can use wherever you want, and it's easy to use, guys. And actually, when you use in your Kali environment, apt get install, and if you say Tor, it's going to install your Tor SOX proxy agent in your machine. And after that, you can run Tor command to run the Tor in your environment. So let me quickly install that. Oops. apt-get install Tor. Yes, please do not waste my data packages. Okay, how about the result? Did we get the results? Okay, there we go. We get the result. So we have full port scan. We already identify which ports are available. So I would like to exploit one of them. Okay, which one can I use? Actually, this nmap scan provides a lot of results for us, and already one of them is exploited. For example, FTP anonymous login is allowed, so it's going to allow me to upload arbitrary code to this machine because anonymous login is allowed. But we already covered that in the previous session. So what I need is I need to find an exploitable service, and one of the famous one is in this box is dist cc. How do I know that? First, in the previous meetup, we already covered that you should use a vulnerability scanning. And I run that vulnerability scan for this machine, and I found that this port is vulnerable, right? This CC. And also another one actually should be, that is Unreal IRC, something like that. DRB maybe. Yeah, I need to check that. Okay, maybe I can check this one because I believe that it's also exploitable. So this one also another good one. So let's start with this CC. How can I exploit that? First of all, copy this name, search it on Google, and with an exploit keyword, right? So this CC exploit